My name is Josh Maloney. I'm the red winemaker for Chateau Ste. Michelle, Canoe Ridge, where all the red wines are made. Behind me is our brand new receiving area that we built in 2009, which has our famous MOG Monster. MOG is actually an acronym. It stands for matter or material other than grapes. So it would include things like stems, undeveloped berries, seeds, leaves, things like that. And this is, as far as we know, it's the largest MOG removal system for grapes in the country. Typically these systems are built for small-scale wineries. They can process grapes at about 2 to 3 tons per hour. We've had ours run as high as 70 tons per hour. We built this system last year because we wanted to greatly improve the quality of our red wines. We felt that that was one of the keys in the next steps for the evolution of our wines. The MOG removal is one of those very important parts. To give you an idea of just how important it is, one of the loads that we received last year was a 20-ton load, which is fairly standard for us. And we captured all of the material that this sorting table pulled out. It was 1,000 pounds. 1,000 pounds over, it was about 2 to 3% of the entire load. That might not seem like a lot, but the stuff that it's pulling out is incredibly bitter and incredibly tart. So it would be analogous to thinking of a seasoning on food, like salt on a steak or something like that. If you took the entire weight of your steak and added 2% of that by salt, it would taste pretty bad. So we realized, pulling the stuff out, what impact it was having on our wines, A, by tasting it at the receiving system, but also by tasting the wines afterwards. And we were very fortunate last year that we had the opportunity to take the same grapes from one of our vineyards, pass it through this system, ferment it with our equipment and our procedures, and take the same grapes, send it to a sister winery, use their equipment, but also our procedures as well. So essentially the only difference was this equipment. Tasting the wine side by side a year later, the wine made from this system, it was rich, it was ripe, it was round, but it was also very, very soft. It had every bit as much extract as the other system, but it had no hard edges to it. The other system, it made a very nice wine, but it had these little kind of pokey edges to it that this new system did not have. So we're very happy with the way these wines are evolving. We're finding that the tannins are finding a resolution sooner in their life, which I think is going to make the wines have greater drinkability when they're young, but also they're not losing any extracts, so I think the wines are going to age just as long, if not better than they have in the past.
This is obviously the only Ste. Michelle property that has this kind of machine. Do you let Columbia Crest use it?
We have invited them to come down and crush some fruit here, and they are seriously considering trying it this year. I know their winemakers have expressed a keen interest in redesigning their system with some of the elements from the system as well. So the invitation's there, but those of you who know us know that we also have a bit of a sibling rivalry going on, so we'll see if they take us up on it or not.
Do you see Ste. Michelle putting something like this in at some of the other properties, such as, well, obviously Crest, but also maybe Snoqualmie or some of those areas? I
know that right now they're in the planning stages. They are considering doing it in future years, but you know, who knows what happens with budgets and things like that. So I probably shouldn't put words in their mouth at this point.
Well, what does a contraption like this cost?
Total, we spent about $750,000 for everything from soup to nuts. I mean, that's from the beginning there, where the grapes come in. You see the trucks are, where it's being dumped, to the hopper, all the way up the incline, to the shaker table, to the destemmer, to the dejuicing, to the waste augers. Everything, including the must pump, installed with all the catwalks and everything, was about $750,000.
So for the end consumer, they're presumably will taste a wine that is a little bit different, a little bit richer, a little bit cleaner, perhaps?
I think what's the end consumer, especially those who have been drinking our wines for years, will have noticed an evolution in our style over the past 5, 6, 7 years anyways. Hopefully what they've noticed is the fruit expression of the wines is getting a little more clear, a little more focused. The tannins are getting softer. There's a little more extract in the mid-palates. There's less green aromas in the wines than there have been. And they're going to see, if they're paying attention, I think a quantum leap between the 2008 and 2009 vintage. But the 09s are going to be even riper and richer and rounder and softer, but every bit as serious and ageable as they were before. One of the aspects of the system that we were kind of warned about from one of our sister wineries, Colsolari, they've got a very small-scale version of this, and their winemaker Marcus told us that when he got his system, that he kind of had to relearn winemaking a little bit from the ground up again, because you can do things now with a system like this that you can't with our old system. For instance, we can push the extraction a little more than we could before. Before we had to be worried about extracting those green and bitter tannins that I mentioned that come out in the MOG. Now we don't have that as much, and we can keep the wine in the skins a little bit longer. They become a little bit richer, a little bit rounded, a little more well-defined. So it's a learning process, and we're even starting it from scratch a little bit this year because we've got a brand new piece of equipment that goes on this. It's something called an air knife, and it's basically a blade that kind of blows across the grapes as they're falling into the sump, and it blows out leaves and little bits of stem along the way. So at least we have something to do this year, right? Right.
It's October 1st, and you just started getting grapes in this week.
It's October 1st. I did the math this morning. We're going to cross the 3% complete mark today. Last year at this point we were 23% complete.
Wow.
Fortunately, we could do 20% in a week if we have to. So all we need is some good weather like this. Mostly we need there to not be a frost, and we'll just keep picking the grapes as long as the weather holds up, and we'll get it home we'll get it home in time. And the thing I'm really excited about, though, is the quality of what I'm seeing. I think is remarkable. Everyone has been very concerned about the quality of the 2010 vintage. Not everybody, a lot of people have been concerned, and the fruit that we have in so far has this amazing fresh fruit purity to it, and these really focused acids that I think are going to make for a very classic, elegant vintage.
Tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up, and how'd you end up in Washington?
Well, I'm from all over. It's kind of funny. My wife and I sat down a couple years ago and we added up all of our mailing addresses in our entire lifetime, and I think it's like 25 or 27.
Wow.
I'm originally from upstate New York. I did some growing up in the Midwest. I went back to college in upstate New York. I've got a bachelor's degree in chemistry. I first started making wine in the Finger Lakes, and then I decided if I wanted to get serious about winemaking, I should move to the West Coast. I made the mistake of going to California instead of Washington first. No, all kidding aside, I worked at Stag Soup Wine Cellars first, so I got to learn some really important things from some of the very notable wineries in California. Went down to the Central Coast, California, and about 5 years ago, I got a call for a job interview up at St. Michel, and came up for an interview. I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about Washington or the wines that we made up here, and I was just blown away by the quality of what was being done up here. I was actually very pleased at the time by the lack of publicity that Washington was getting, because I felt that Washington was nearing a tipping point, and I wanted to get in before it tipped. And I think Washington has been tipping over the past several years. And I'm fairly certain in the next couple of years there's going to be a lot more people from California trying to come up here and get their foot in the door. So I'm really happy I got up here when I did.
Josh, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.